Hello, hi, I hope you're doing good. I have my puffin mug today because I need a little bit of joy. Because yesterday was a very rough day at the restaurant, but it did illuminate a very important point to me about mindset and how, in any given moment, your mindset will dictate how painful or how successful a moment will be. You can choose how much suffering you garner from a specific moment based on your mindset. Like, obviously, you can't control what life throws at you sometimes, but you can control what goes on in your mind. That's the one thing you can control. And mindset is so much more than just like positive thinking and smiling through the pain, right? It's the difference between self-destruction and self-resurrection in any given moment. So let's talk about it. And let me just get into the story that inspired this moment. So yesterday was really rough at the restaurant. There were so many tables in there, busy restaurant from start till close. And I just kept telling myself the whole time, I'm like, don't get stressed out, Bailey. Do not succumb to the chaos around you. This isn't life or death. Just be patient, be calm, be kind, be courteous. Don't let anything get to you too much. Don't cling to anything. At the grand scheme of things, nothing really matters. All of this is okay. That's where my head was at. And then by the end of the shift, 10 minutes before closing, of course, I had one table that was quite literally the worst table I have had in my 2 years of serving. And I was still maintaining a positive attitude, trying to be as positive as I can, as respectful and courteous as I can to these people. But I walk up to the table and there was just immediate hostility. Immediate hostility, immediately saying that everything was overpriced, immediately saying that there's nothing there that they want. And I was trying to encourage them to pick something that was similar to what they did want, even if we didn't have exactly that. And they had asked for like extra chicken on something. And they were upset that I had said that there was an upcharge with that. They're like, why can't you just chuck it on there? And I'm like, I'm trying to explain to them that like extra stuff costs more. And it was a very frustrating process, probably for them as well. It was just a frustrating process. And the whole time that they're complaining about this, I'm just thinking in my mind, I'm like, this is a mindset. The way you're behaving right now is a mindset. If you've looked at the menu and you've decided everything is overpriced and there's nothing here that you want, you can either adjust your expectations or you can leave the restaurant. And of course I didn't say that. That's rude. You can't say that to a person. And they ended up staying there like well after closing, and they left no tip, and then they wrote that everything was overpriced on the ticket. And then they left. And I kept sitting there and thinking and looking, and I was like, this is all a mindset. Like someone else in their exact position, they walk into a restaurant late at night, they see that there's nothing they want on the menu, and they see that it's overpriced. You put 10 people in that scenario, they're all going to act differently according to what's going on in their mind. And of course, like what's going on in your mind is somewhat like what you've gone through, like your subconscious and like what's going on in your mind and the conditioning that you've been through in this world. But to some degree, there's also a level of accountability, responsibility, and control over that. The same with like, I could have been freaking out. I could have been crying that they gave me no tip. I could have been like freaking out at the chaos that was that day. I was understandably upset, but it's like, it's not ruining my day. It's not ruining my life. It's okay. It was a moment. It's done. It's gone. Let's move forward, right? Because, okay, the brain isn't wired for happiness. It's wired for survival. And the brain doesn't recognize when something is just a thought or when it's truth.
Hi, hello, Editing Bailey here. Also, the brain doesn't really know when something that you dislike is a threat versus you just don't like it. Because you have to understand, in like caveman days, back when we just had our lizard brains, if you didn't like something, like if something tasted bitter, it meant it was poisonous. If you felt anxious in a situation, it meant that your survival instincts were kicking in. So sometimes we mistake things that we dislike and things that are uncomfortable as things that are threats to our survival, right? So we have exaggerated reactions to them sometimes purely because our brains sometimes cannot tell the difference between threats and not liking something.
And we talked about it before, that the brain just needs to think something twice to already start believing that it's true. So if you constantly tell yourself like, I'm not good enough, I'll never get better, or, I'm a victim of life, or whatever it is that you repeat and mull around your head, your brain will start to perceive that as, oh, we think this a lot. This must be truth. They're cutting grass outside. They're doing the lawnmower outside, so I might have to switch over to the microphone. See, another reason that I like to use the microphone is because there's so much fucking noise at this apartment.
Let me get back to my notes here. The more you repeat something to yourself, the more your brain starts to perceive it as truth, right? So anxiety will start to feel like danger, heartbreak will feel like dying, and hopelessness will feel permanent because you have wired your brain to believe it to be so, right? It's like one of my very negative thought patterns is that when something starts to fail, like something's on the decline, like let's say I'm not succeeding as well as I would like to in something. I immediately think that I'm a failure. I immediately think that what I'm doing isn't good. I immediately think that if there isn't continued and exponential growth in anything that I'm working towards, it immediately means that it's a sign from the universe that I should quit it. I'm very attuned to failure because that's just the way my brain is wired. I'm very perfectionistic and it's a bad trait because it makes it almost insufferable to be able to go for anything because failure is a part of the process and I don't let myself have failure, right? That's one of my negative thought patterns that I'm aware of. But there is a process called neuroplasticity where you can rewire your brain, teach it to see new patterns, build new beliefs, and anchor into a mindset that helps you rise, not crumble. And you're rehearsing the wrong thoughts, basically. Like if your mindset is a play that you're reading fucking tragic Shakespeare in your mind 24/7, and then you wonder why you're complaining about everything and why everything seems so hard and why everything's so difficult. It's not that it's difficult, but it's kind of like you've created a rat maze in your mind that you force your brain to dance around. Does that make sense? So, one of the things that has really helped me shift my mindset, especially when I'm having very negative thought patterns, or I notice that I'm like going through a bad time or a rough time, and there's nothing objectifiably horrible going on in my life. I just notice that like I'm sad all the time, or I'm angry all the time, or I'm upset all the time, or there's like a destructive thought that shows up, and I'm like, ooh, I don't like my brain saying that. Or even like the people in the restaurant where they weren't going through an objectively bad situation. Like they were about to get food. It might be a little bit overpriced. It might not be exactly what they want. Is that an objectively bad situation? No, it's not. You're not dying. If you're not dying, it's not a bad situation, in my opinion. There's a way out of that situation, whether through your mindset or through like physical action of leaving, right? So when you're having those thoughts, respond to your brain. Literally respond to your brain. Like if I'm having a thought that's like, I'm a failure, I shouldn't be doing this is horrible because of my perfectionistic tendencies, I can say to my brain, that's one version of the story. What if there's another version? What if the next action I can take is from a place of strength and not a place of self destruction and of self pity? Take a moment to breathe when you are triggered by a situation or when a situation is upsetting you. Just say, you know what? I can notice myself spiraling. I can notice that my brain is saying things that I don't want it to. I notice that I am getting more worked up about this situation than is warranted. Because obviously, like, if, there's a fire, you're allowed to scream at the fire. But if you are getting so worked up over something that does not make logical sense as to why your emotional level is so much higher than the situation itself, then there's a trigger that's going on. There's something in your mindset that's causing that emotional release, right? So I always pause. That's the number one thing I do. I talk to my brain like it's another person, which I know sounds a little batshit crazy, but we already know that I'm BS. I am batshit crazy. So I'll talk to my brain like it's another person. I'm like, I know you want to call me stupid. I know you want to call me lazy. I know you want to call me a failure. I know you want to get stressed out right now. I know you think that doing this thing that I'm telling you to do, like run a couple miles or do something for YouTube or write for my book, feels like the hardest thing in the world and it feels insurmountably difficult. It's not that the weight of doing that activity is hard. It's that the weight of the mindset being carried on the back of your shoulders and doing that activity is hard. You know? Like the people in the restaurant. I'm not going to psychoanalyze them, but If you are walking into a restaurant with that kind of attitude, there is something going on in your mind that is causing you to carry that attitude. I don't know what that is. I don't know whether it's you had a bad childhood. I don't know if it's you've had a bad day. I don't know if someone just died in your family. You know, I don't know what is going on in your head to allow you to behave that way. That's a you problem. You know why you're behaving that way. You know what's going on in your head that's allowing you to behave that way. I don't know. But there's something going on in your mind that is causing you to act the way you do. You know, it's like I bring him up every single time because I think he's a very good example. David Goggins, if we could hear what is going on in his mind, like we do sometimes in interviews, we'll know that the words that he's feeding to himself are very strict, very disciplined, very motivational. The same way that every other person who is like him, who is an endurance athlete, someone who's highly motivated and who works really, really hard, has a similar script running through their head. Same thing with billionaires, like every single person that has a lot of money has a very similar script running through their head. The same way that, like, every single ballerina I've ever met, they think the same things, especially if they're at a very high level. Every single prima ballerina I have met is the same person because they have the same thoughts running through their head. And the thing is that you teach your brain what to think by what you feed it. When you are noticing that you're having a thought or having a reaction that you don't like you're behaving in a way that you don't like, or you're thinking something you don't like, take a pause, talk to your brain, take a second, take a breath, think about what is going on in your headspace, and then say, okay, what do I actually want my brain to say in this situation? And then I'll think it over and over and over like an affirmation. Like the other day, I didn't want to go for a run. I got up and I was like, you know what? I'm tired. I don't really want to do this. I have no motivation. You know, I'm probably going to hurt myself. Like, what if I hurt my back? Like, what if I do this? My mind was racing, right? And that racing mindset was causing me to stay in bed and not go for what I want. And then I kind of turned to myself and I said, this might be painful, but it's not the end of the world. This might be difficult, but it's not going to kill you. This might be uncomfortable, but it's going to change you in a way for the better. This is the difficulty required to reach for the things that you want. Your dreams are going to come at the cost of your comfort. And I just kept repeating those phrases to myself over and over and over as I was getting ready. And then as I was running, I was like, this isn't life or death. You are okay. You're not going to die. This might be painful, but it's not the end of the world. You have to get out of your comfort zone in order to get what you want. Just repeating over and over and over. And you know what? I went out there, I did my run, I felt great. But if I had listened to my mind instead of understanding that I'm in charge of my mind is my child. I'm the parent. I'm allowed to tell my mind very gently what it should be thinking. And this is instrumental. This is instrumental to healing. Because we very often think that I have to listen to what my mind tells me versus I'm the one that's in charge, and if my brain is thinking this, it's because I've taught it to think this. Your brain is a very squishy computer. Program that shit. Program it better. I mean, Marcus Aurelius, like the Stoic emperor, said, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. Like, mindset isn't about erasing your emotions, it's about leading yourself through them. Because your emotions will influence your thoughts, but then you're the one in the driver's seat of your thoughts. And when I finally accepted that I couldn't control life, but I could control the way that I thought about it, that's when I became limitless. So for the next 7 days, I want to put you guys through a challenge. Whenever you catch yourself having a limiting thought, write it down and reframe it. If you catch yourself saying, oh my God, everyone hates me, or oh my God, I'm so stupid, or I'm so ugly, or I'm so fat, or whatever it is that you think about yourself, write it down and reframe it. If your friend was saying that to themselves, what would you say to them? If a kid was saying that to themselves, what would you say to them? And write that down and then repeat that to yourself. Be a friend to yourself. Be a parent to yourself, because this is how you rewire your brain. This is how you control your mindset. This is how you become unbreakable. Not because life gets easier, but because you think about it different now.